Fourth Wall, a series produced, edited, and released by Gobro. This series has tons of unanswered questions, so in today's video, I'm going to be trying to figure out all of the hidden secrets. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Anyways, let's hop into the video. The series starts off in Universe 84, which seems to be the main universe of the series. Gobro exits his house to meet Track and Soul. They walk to the store and they buy food for Gobro because Gobro is the most poor man in the world. Gobro returns home and then gets a mysterious letter that tells him to go to caves. Gobro goes down into caves, and here is where we meet with Doctor, our main story's lead force of interest. Doctor explains to Gobro that he must go to different universes to capture different entities, and if he doesn't do the job, then Gobro will be killed. What I find interesting is that Gobro of all people was selected to do this job. We will come back to that later. Gobro then enters his first universe, and the universe he travels to is MGS. Track, your series is too damn complicated. Gobro sees Track and Soul tied on a beach and approaches them. Track and Soul are scared, and Gobro has no idea why. Gobro encounters his first minigame kid and is scared of it. He goes down to a little platform, and the Doctor gives him a message. And well, that's all for episode 1. Episode 2 is one of those filler episodes in a show, so I'll just recap it very quickly. Gobro captures a minigame kid and brings it back to the facility. Then he goes to what seems to be a game show, maybe Jeopardy or some sort of Survivor type game. He then goes to the Parasite, Rock follows him, and then they capture Parasite and returns home. Now, episode 3 is the complete opposite of episode 2. Episode 3 is filled with lore, so let's get started. The video begins with the Doctor congratulating Gobro with capturing entities from both universes. Gobro is then tasked to go to another universe, but when Gobro jumps into the crystal, Gobro is sent to a universe known as Negative 84, the complete opposite of Gobro's universe. He travels the forest and then meets a negative. The first one he meets is Negative Soul. He runs away from Negative Soul and goes to the city, where he meets Negative Track, which in my opinion is the scariest. Negative Track gives Gobro the speech and then teleports away. Gobro then goes to canyons trying to look for the Doctor, but he meets Negative Rocket. The Negative Rocket captures him. Gobro is then brought to the beach where he meets Negative Gobro, the leader of the Negatives. Here's why I want to bring back something from episode 1. It's awfully weird how Gobro was picked to do the job and the main antagonist is a negative version of Gobro. Anyways, Negative Gobro gives Gobro a speech about control, and then sends Gobro back to Universe 84, where Track explains that where Gobro went had no elements at all. Episode 4 is another one of those filler episodes, but I do want to point out something really big. When Gobro is chasing Soul through the universe, we get a glimpse of a Negative Track sitting in Universe Minecraft, and then proceeds to follow Soul. That's really all that is interesting besides the fact that verbal aid is a recurring theme. Episode 5, in my opinion, is the best. Let me explain. The video starts off with Spryzen trying to find Gobro. Trek explains that Gobro usually goes to Marcy's taco truck in the morning. Spryzen heads there to meet Gobro. Once Gobro and Spryzen meet, they head to forest, where we see Negative Track in the background. Track shoots Marcy, and then the gang heads to Stomp. There, Track leaves the group and Spryzen, and Gobro heads to caves. Gobro and Spryzen jump into the crystal and captured by what we now know was an Indian princess. There, the princess ties Gobro up, but Spryzen helps Gobro escape. They have to swamp and then meet Negative Track again. Negative Track brings Gobro to a different area in the multiverse and gives one of the best speeches ever given. Negative Track proceeds to beat up Gobro and then tells Gobro he's fighting on the wrong side, and then sends Gobro home. Episode 5 is the last episode of the series. This episode opens with Track explaining the Doctor was killed by a negative. Gobro then travels to mountains to say hello to Spryzen. Then Negative Gobro attacks Gobro and then tells Negative Spryzen to kill Gobro, but normal Spryzen gets stabbed to save Gobro. Then Gobro tells the Negative to leave, and the Negative actually listens. Gobro then goes to the treehouse to be alone, but Negative Gobro offers Gobro a deal. Half of Gobro's soul to save Spryzen. Gobro takes the steal, and then the world corrupts around them. Spryzen then tells Gobro that he feels fine. Spryzen and Gobro suit up for battle to kill the Negatives. They had swamp, but all their gear is gone. Negative's Track slams Gobro into the wall. Before he can kill Gobro, Spryzen shoots him. Then Gobro gets teleported to mountains, where he meets Negative Soul. Shows Gobro a vision where Spryzen is dead. Gobro is teleported next to Spryzen's body, and then sends the Negative Soul away. He touches Spryzen's body, but then it disappears. Cobra then goes on a rampage by killing Negative Soul and Rocket. He meets Negative Cobra again, and Cobra is about to kill Negative Cobra, but before he can, Negative Spryzen comes in and throws Cobra back to Universe 84, where Track merely says, "Cobra, you're dead?" Well, that's the recap. Now it's time to theorize. The one thing I do believe is that all the negatives have their own powers. Rocket, Stealth. Negative Track, Strength. Negative Soul, Illusion. Negative Cobra, Manipulation. So I asked Cobra himself, where did the negatives get their powers? And Cobra said, which gives me a lot more questions. Are these powerful entities could have been so powerful so that they're on par with the devil? Well, it's time for the biggest question ever. Cobra in the future becomes Negative Cobra. Let me explain. Cobra is constantly fighting and losing his friends in battle. And at the end of the series, Track says that Cobra is already dead. So what if, in the future, now that Cobra has lost everything, he makes a deal with a powerful entity, and then he becomes a Negative Cobra. And then he goes back in time to make past Cobra's life hell. Well, we don't know for sure because Cobra is sadly leaving YouTube, but he has left a massive impact on all of us. I hope you know he is loved. We will miss you, Legend.